Hyperbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Hyperbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pro Physique Code. Today we're going to talk about shit they don't tell you about show day, and we'll maybe include before show day, but the last day and a half of prep.
Yes. We're going to go into, basically Paul nailed it. The shit they don't tell you about show day, and then also answer maybe a couple questions that I know I got a couple questions specifically from some of you guys on Instagram, just about different show day things or like the day before show. Because I think there are some things like if you've never competed before, some things that are a little bit shocking, especially the tan, right? But yeah, we're going to dive into this topic.
Yeah, I like the idea of just getting very granular with what happens the last day, the day of the show. Maybe talk about like what you do after prejudging before finals. What do you do after finals? Like there is a lot going on, and I've heard a lot of competitors be like, "Oh, I didn't know I could stay for feedback. I just left."
Right,
So,
right.
you know,
And I also think we could dive in a little bit about like just understanding what's going on stage. Like if you are a spectator or if you are going to, like if you are a future competitor and you're going to a show, because I know I get asked questions a lot on like, what does it mean if somebody's moved to the middle, or, what do certain things mean? So I think we can talk a little bit about that on kind of a general level too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good topic to go over because I try to explain to athletes before they go to shows kind of what's going to happen, right? Because every show looks a little bit different, but there are procedures in place. Like, do they do initial comparisons before they do call outs? Why is the reason they do initial comparisons before call outs sometimes and not other times? It all has to do with the number of people in the show, but it's stuff that people really don't kind of think about. But if you are aware of it, it makes the whole show day a more comfortable experience, because I feel like, especially for newer competitors, most of the anxiety is around what's going to happen.
yeah,
on
the
show day.
unknown.
Yeah, the unknown.
The second show is always so much more chill. You just show up, you go to check-ins, you get your number, you go like the first show of a season when it's been a year and you're nervous about, A, checking in, B, when do you check in with your coach? When do you get to your hotel room? So let's get into a little bit of the mechanics of like the final, let's say 48 hours of a show. And I think the first thing we can talk about is like travel, right? Now, if you're doing a local show and you live within an hour or two, no stress. But if you are going to be traveling, more than 4 to 6 hours of a drive, or you have to fly, I usually suggest people get in Thursday night for a Saturday show, not trying to get in town on Friday.
Yeah. I mean, with the way flights are these days too, I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I've been hearing a lot of people's flights getting delayed or pushed back, and you just don't want that stress if you fly in the day before. I mean, maybe you could do like a direct flight early in the morning, but even with that, you're going to have to get up really early Friday morning, get to the airport, and that can just be added stress. So
Yeah.
I would definitely agree, Paul, if you can get to the show, like the hotel Thursday. I know it's an extra night of having to pay for the hotel, but as we always say, you want to be a diva and you don't want your stress to be super high the day before the show.
Yeah,
It's huge.
And I don't know anyone that's flown recently that like hasn't got delayed, to be honest with you. I mean, it's pretty much everything these days. So you need to prepare a little bit in advance as well.
I'm going to buck the trend, guys. I fly almost every weekend. I've had one bad flight in 2 years. I don't know. Maybe I will say this. I always get the first out flight, when I can. And I almost always fly Southwest lately. So Southwest is just really good about, things. I've heard other airlines, maybe not so much. I don't know.
Yeah, earlier flights are definitely the way to go.
I was gonna say that too, Paul. Like, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but I feel like I've had pretty good luck too. In Southwest, yeah, you're right. Southwest is great. And then but I also think too, if you can get the first flight out in the morning, that I mean, generally there's only gonna be a delay if there's like a mechanical issue. So you're a little bit in better hands if you do that.
I
So
almost always at this point fly direct. If I can't, I'll
same.
I'll fly at a worse time to get a direct flight, because layovers is where you really increase your chance of another flight, a flight crew, weather disrupting your day.
For
Yep.
sure. For sure. Yeah. So fly in the Thursday night before the show if you can do so. If you're driving, I mean, if you only have, I would say like an hour drive, I don't think there's a need to go there the day before unless you want to. But I would say if you have like, 5, 6 hour drive, I would still recommend getting there on Thursday because you just never know if you get stuck in traffic on Friday. So,
Well, and as soon as, let's say you decide to leave Friday morning and your flight gets delayed, or you're waiting and you don't see your bag coming out, all those little things add up and they start to give you a little bit of stress. And then on Friday, you're probably got an appointment for your tan. You probably got an appointment with the gym or with your coach. You probably got to go to check-ins. Like, so when you're flying into town and just bop, 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 you got all these things to do, it's a much different experience than if you just wake up in the city and you can just kind of relax and go do your thing. So, stress is such a huge part of this. Now, obviously at national shows, there's no option. You have to be there. What's funny this year, and I think maybe that's always the case with North Americans, check-ins for bikini, which was Saturday, were on Thursday.
Yeah.
So they kind of forced everyone to be in town for that.
Which I don't like that when they do that, especially with hotel prices the way that they are. I mean, they used to do that for nationals, right? Like check-ins Thursday, show Saturday. Look, in a perfect world, we would all get there early, right? But there are finances involved with that. And for some people, in some of these hotels are not cheap. You're talking $300-400 a night, and you toss that on top of everything else. Plus, a lot of people have to take off from work to be able to do it. And it's just like a compounding thing. So I feel like with the check-ins, they should be a little bit more helpful with that as far as having them on different days. But I understand, like, they're also limited on the people they can bring as well to work the shows.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see in the years ahead if, with the shows, if there tends to be more people staying local, especially with the cost of things going up.
Yeah.
It's definitely, like I said, with the numbers changing, I don't know. We'll get more data as the year unfolds, but it's interesting. I told you I've been shocked this year at how few people show up at Pittsburgh, which is like the home of the IFBB, and you get the best judges, the Pittsburgh Pro, that show. And then the last North Americans, I felt like I mean, we tracked the numbers. They were down significantly from the year before. So I wonder if that's just because Pittsburgh's not necessarily a bodybuilding heavy state, Pennsylvania, versus something like Texas, where they're just loaded with athletes that can just drive to the shows,
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, so get to the show the day before, well, not the day before, 2 days before if you're flying or if you're traveling in, so Thursday night. Okay, where do we want to go next? What's the next thing you want to
Well, if we're talking about shit they don't tell you, it's, when you get to a show, what are check-ins entailed? Like if you're new to the sport, when you go to your check-in, if you're in a class that requires a height. So I have some athletes that go, "Oh, coach, when I'm applying for the show, do you want me in class C or class D?" And I'm like, it doesn't matter. When you get to the show, they're going to measure you and they're going to tell you what class you're in. That's how it works.
I've gotten that question recently too, like, hey, what class am I in? But yeah, you sign up. I mean, honestly, sign up for whatever on the site and they're going to measure you when you get there. And then another thing that I've been getting asked frequently, and I don't know if a lot of show websites say this or where it's coming from, but I've gotten a lot of bikini athletes asking, like, should I go to check-ins in my suit or should I bring my suit? And I feel like there must be something on some show websites, like bring your suit bottoms. Cause I think I've seen that before, but I don't know about you guys. I've never seen them actually like check your suit at check-ins. So you definitely don't need to go to check-ins in your suit. For peace of mind, maybe just bring it with you, but usually you're not going to need it.
I don't know if it's anymore, but it did used to say that when you would check in, it would say, please bring in wear your competition suit. It says that on there. I don't know if it's still on there or not. And I've had people ask me, it's like, I've literally never worn it ever. I've never seen anybody bring it either. So, I don't know why that's still on there, but again, that's, I never really remember that till you brought that up, but
Right.
you do something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been getting questions about that. So basically all you need when you go to check-ins is just go. You can go in your tanning outfit. It doesn't really matter what you're wearing. I mean, obviously wear something. You don't need to wear your suit. But do have your NPC card. So if you're competing in the NPC, have your NPC card with you. Like have it just ready to go on your phone. Because they will ask for that. And they usually will want you to have that ready to show them when you are checking in. But check-ins are pretty simple, pretty quick. They'll measure you. They're gonna give you, you know, your number, your swag bag if you get one, and that's pretty much it.
I think one of the biggest tips you can give people is that they're always going to accept you and they're always going to take your money. And that goes from all aspects of everything with it. You could have not registered for the show. You can walk in, not have your NPC card, say, hey, I would like to do this show. They will show you how to get your NPC card. They'll tell you which divisions you can do. You can sign for the divisions you want. And even with the tanning too, you could go over to the tanning and say, hey, I did not book my tanning. It may not be an optimal time, but they will take care of you. So I know a lot of people stress over a lot of this stuff, and I completely understand that. But no, if something doesn't go smoothly, you're still going to be able to compete. You're still going to be able to get taken care of. And so it's not a reason to stress that everything needs to be 100% perfect, especially if it's one of your first, one or two shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Yeah, you can buy your NPC card there if you want. You
Mhm.
can probably you can add in a category that you compete in if
Absolutely.
you want. And same with the tan. Like I've done that before. I've literally run to the tanning lady the night before because I tried the DIY and it wasn't working. And she was like, "Yeah, you're good." They take your money, and yeah,
Yep.
like that's a great point, Evan. They're not usually going to turn you down if you're willing to pay them for something.
I mean, here's the case in point too. When I did North Americans like 4 years ago, I was so locked into that prep, and it was during the COVID year actually, and there was obviously a lot going on. And I went up there to the show, and I went to check-ins and realized I never even registered for the show. I was like, I didn't even register, and I
Now,
walked in. I
national
laughed.
shows it's a pretty hefty upcharge, a couple $100 sometimes.
Yeah, they knew me, so it was a little bit better with that. But yeah, it's national shows. You want to make sure you register beforehand on that. And some shows do give late fees, right? Some shows do give late fees on things. I think another good thing or to think about and consider is I have a lot of people ask, should I register for the show like 3 months out? I don't think that's ever necessarily a good idea because it's one of those things they're not going to refund your money, right? So whatever happens, if something does happen personally in between that time, you're not necessarily going to get it back. I would go ahead and book your hotels and things like that because those are refundable, right? And you want to be able to get those in and get those locked in for sure. But sometimes you do need to register for the show to be able to register for the tanning, be able to do the hair and makeup with their preferred vendor. So sometimes you do need to do that type of stuff. But again, every show is independent on that. These are every show is sanctioned by the NPC and IFBB, but they're not run by the NPC IFBB. These are individual promoters running the shows the way they want to run them.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
recommendation would be whatever show you're planning to do, follow the show, like the show promoter on Instagram, or some shows even have like their own Instagram. Because usually they'll post updates and they'll also post like when you need to register by in order to avoid the late fee. Because most
Mhm.
shows, I think all shows are going to have a point where if you register beyond a certain point, there's a little bit of an upcharge. So sometimes if you want to, avoid that, obviously follow the promoter or the show on Instagram. So that way you can stay in the loop because every show is a little bit different with when they start to apply those late fees.
And you definitely want to register before the late fee gets in. And Paul, maybe you can answer this question, but I've never really seen someone come in and add a division. Like, let's say you're doing open bikini and you go in and they're like, well, you could do masters, you could do novice as well. Would you like to do that? People, sure, why not? Yeah, I'll go ahead and do those two classes as well. I haven't seen them put up charges on that if you're adding divisions. Have you?
What do you mean? No, no, no. That's just a regular entry for an NPC
Yeah.
show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It used to be years ago when I first started competing, it would be like 150 per class and then 75 for an additional class. Now it's kind
Mhm.
of all the same for all the
Yeah.
classes. Um, so it just depends on the show. I mean, there are different fees, different, shows charge, differently. Um, and some shows are more of a value than others, but it really just comes down to like, yeah, when you go to check-ins, if you're only registered for novice, they might say, hey, is this your first show? You can do true novice. And you might be like, oh, so, my suggestion typically is all the classes you're eligible for, because you prepped that whole time, get up on stage as many times as you can. It's like doing multiple shows in the same day.
Mhm.
Now, if you're if you're a true novice masters that can do 6 classes, maybe you pick like 2 or 3, but
Yeah, I think it really depends too on your budget, because I know I'll usually tell my girls like all the classes that they're eligible for, and then tell them, hey, this is the 1 or 2 or 3 that I would strongly recommend we
Mhm.
do at the minimum. But if you want to do any others, those are optional. Because yeah, if you are masters, it can be. I mean, sometimes you're eligible to do like 5 or 6 different classes, and that could be pretty
I
expensive.
did that once. I
Yeah.
did men's physique and I did classic physique at the same show. I did masters, I did novice, I did open. So I was in 6 classes. I won all 6 and I won 3 overalls. So it was a fun day. The only one
Wow.
I didn't win was the men's physique.
Now, something to consider with this, if you're a first-time competitor, is I understand what to register for a bunch of divisions. I get that. But if it is a smaller show, it can get a little bit stressful the more divisions that you do, or the more
Right.
classes that you do. I had a client that was his first ever show, and we are going to do multiple shows, but he has a vacation planned and kind of couldn't end up doing the ones after that. So let's make the most out of this one, right? So we did true novice, novice, open, masters over 35, and I think masters over 40. So he did all those classes. When I asked him how it went, he could not tell me. He was like, as soon as I got on stage, they were rushing me back to go ahead and get up there again. He didn't
Yeah,
even really
run
know what
back around.
classes he was doing at
Yeah.
that point, because it was a little bit of a smaller show in the men's physique side of things. So he didn't even know what call out he was in, where he was, what he was doing. It was like a whirlwind for him there. And
Yeah.
it's a lot, right? Like it's a lot. And you want the show day experience to be good. You want to be able to kind of know what's going on. And if you're in too many classes and it's not a big, look, if it's a big show, you got nothing to worry about with that.
Yeah.
You're going to have plenty of time. But if it's a smaller
Yeah.
show, things can get a little
Well,
rushed.
and another thing too on that topic, and this is something we, unfortunately we can't always predict, but if it is a really small show, and let's say you do all these different categories, you may run into just the like either being the same person that like only competing against yourself in some of these divisions, or just competing against like the same 1 person or 2 person every category you do. So there is always that side of things too. But again, that's not always something you can predict, because you're never going to be able to predict the size of the show. But the next thing I think that we can talk about real briefly is tanning, because that always takes place the day before the show if you choose to go through the tanning company, which every show has like a tanning company that they promote, and that is usually done the day before the show. Usually like your first appointment or first coat is going to be in the evening, and that's always interesting. I always chuckle because I'm always curious to hear what my first timers, my first time competitors think after that experience, because it's definitely different. I don't think a lot of people expect it to be how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah. So shit they don't tell you, you're going to be naked in front of strangers. That's what they don't tell you, Lexie.
Right, right. I had a girl this weekend who competed for the first time. It was just funny. Her text after I was waiting for it after she got the tan, and it was just kind of funny because she was like, "Yeah, I was not expecting that," but you definitely get comfortable pretty quick. And yeah, you strip down, you get naked. They obviously have separate rooms for girls and guys, but you just kind of
In the United States, they do, not in Europe.
oh, really? Interesting. I did
I've
not.
heard rumors of some shows where they just have everybody in one room just spraying away.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah.
And Lexie's like, so note to self, not competing in Europe.
No, that is interesting. Yeah. Well, it is. I remember my first show I did. It was kind of a like just a little bit of a shell shock. But honestly, when you think about it, I don't really know what else I would have expected, right? Because if you're gonna get spray tan
Yeah.
your body, it's like, what do you expect to be able to
You
keep?
can't wear your suit, it'll ruin your suit.
No, no. Yeah, don't wear your suit. Obviously when you go to tanning, wear like loose, dark clothing. Like that's why you see a lot of competitors usually wearing like really baggy black like sweatpants,
Yeah.
and a baggy black shirt. Usually that's best to wear. You
Well, and
definitely
if guys are in men's physique, they can get away with wearing like little tiny underwear because they're not. But if you're in bodybuilding, they give you like essentially like a little
sock.
mesh cover for your little general.
Yes. Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that because I want to say I did a video. It was called, I think it was called like Shit They Don't Tell You About Show Day on my YouTube channel like a few years ago. And I want to say somebody, I can't remember the exact story, but somebody told me that it was a female and she said something along the lines of they handed her whatever they give the guys to, cover the privates. They handed her one of those and she like thought it was for her hands and like put her hands in there. I don't know. It was something funny like that. But yeah, the tan is definitely an interesting experience. One thing to note on that too, is I know I've made this mistake before. If you have like sweatpants that cinch at the waist that like you can tie really tight, be careful of those because you want baggy clothing for a reason. You don't want anything like super form fitting to your skin because it can kind of rub off the tan. So baggy, dark clothing is what you want to have when you go and get that tan.
Think about it like this. The way a tan works, you are legitimately painting your body. So think about if you paint a wall. You don't want to lean against a wall when it's wet. Similar stuff when it comes to tanning. You are painting your body. You are staining your skin. That's what you are doing. So always remember that. And if you can kind of think about it from that aspect, I think it gets a little bit easier in decision making
Yeah.
with that.
Oh, and no deodorant once you get the tan, no deodorant, because the tan, if you have deodorant on your skin, the tan.
No, before you go get the tan.
Oh yeah,
Either.
yeah. Like the day that you get the tan, no deodorant because it can potentially turn the tan like green, and you definitely don't want that. Also, little PSA. I mean, I guess this applies to men as well, but especially females. Be very careful when you go get your tan. Try not to have any like crazy tan lines. I've seen that before too with girls who have like really crazy tan lines from a bathing suit and they laid out, on the beach or whatnot. And the tan can only cover up so much. So if you have a really bad tan line or you're really badly burnt from like a prior sunburn, that is not going to make the tanning people super happy.
Yeah, that's hard to fix.
Here's a conversation I had the other day, and it's something that we both all been in the sport for a while, so we don't really think about this anymore, but I think it's something that's helpful for people that have not competed before. It does not matter your skin tone or your race. Everyone gets spray tanned. Everyone. Everyone. If it helps uniform the skin, it makes everything cleaner, it makes everything smoother. Everyone gets spray tanned. Everyone.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
They
Even darker skinned athletes, they're at least going to do like one light layer. It's going to, make everything look glistening.
Yeah. Oh, and this is another thing I get asked too is like for ladies for your nails. I feel like a lot of people worry about that, and they usually when you go get your tan, they'll put like a little gel on your nails so that way your nails won't get ruined. So you don't have to worry. Like if you go and get your nails done that week, and then you go and get your spray tan, the spray tan won't ruin your nails because they usually put like some sort of gel on the nails to protect them.
Yeah, I've had a tradition for a few years now. When I compete, the week of the show, I go get a mani-pedi and get clear nail polish. Just you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, that's funny. I do remember you've said that before.
It's kind of like it's very relaxing. You just sit there, let them, they massage your calves, your forearms, and then they, your nails just don't have to worry about getting stained.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think one other thing that's super, unless you want to talk more about the tan.
No, I think
Okay.
that covers it.
I think the question I probably get asked the most is about like pumping up. Like when do I start pumping up? And especially if it really doesn't matter the size of the show. If you're backstage, you will typically see people pumping up way too early. Way too early. Just
I've
because
seen
they get
guys
bored.
pumping up and the show hasn't even started yet, and they're in men's physique, and they got 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
But,
And
yeah.
you want to pay attention to your coach with that and not what everyone else is doing around you. Because that goes for everything. It goes for food. It goes for everything. There's a lot of conversations I have with people on show day. And they're like, well, do I need to eat something? Do I need to eat something? Do I need to eat something? It's like, well, no, probably not. You probably don't need to eat something right now. We've had a couple meals in us. If you need something just for your nerves, which can really, really be a thing, then maybe like a rice cake here or there with it. But you'll see people backstage just slamming candy and, eating bags and bags and bags of rice cakes. And if you just kind of understand digestion and how that stuff works, it doesn't provide any benefit to it.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're back, like if it's your first show or even if it's not your first show and you're super nervous, right? You're in that heightened like fight or flight mode. I mean, that's going to slow down digestion too. So that's
Mhm.
something to think about. But yeah, that's a great point, Evan. I see a lot of people pumping up way too early. And I think part of it is just too many people care too much about what other people are doing around
Yep.
them, and they see other people pumping up and they're like, oh, maybe I should be pumping up, right? So then they stand up and do it. But I always tell my girls, like, I want you backstage just relaxing. Like, sit down, put your feet up, just chill, relax, pay attention, but like, don't be walking around a ton backstage and, pumping up way too early, because you want to relax and then pump up, when you know that you're getting closer to that division. Usually I say, I mean, it depends if you're like true novice bikini or you're only open. But like, if you're true novice bikini, when you start to see those wellness girls, lining up, that's probably when you want to kind of start to get warm at least.
Well,
Yeah.
the big thing is a pump is temporary. You're
Right.
not going to hold a pump for 2-3 hours. So you pump up, you get all that blood in your muscle, you look great. You've burned off some of that glycogen. If you flatten back out, you might not be able to recapture that. So that's really, you want to like save that. I mean, honestly, some of these shows, especially like Universe, where they have the girls lining up for an hour before they're on stage, I'm like, you don't start pumping up until you see the girls class before you hit the stage, because that's 15, 20, 30 minutes of class. So if you're in bikini C, wait till bikini B walks out on stage. They've got to do their groups, they got to do their individuals, they got to do their call outs. That's about the time you want to start pumping up. So the thing I always tell, if I'm not at the show, to like direct them, is make best friends with the expediters.
Yep.
They want the show to run smooth. They want you to be near them. If you're like, hey, sometimes people will be like, coach, there's like 17 classes before I go. First of all, there's 17 classes if there's an athlete in all those classes. Second of all, some of those classes might have 1 or 2 athletes. So that's really quick. So it's not 17 classes, it's how many athletes between you and the next. And the expediter has it on a sheet. He'll say like bikini true novice A, 7, bikini true novice B, 4. Like they'll know, oh, okay, we got about, you got about 45 minutes. They'll tell you.
Some will. Some will.
Well, we're in Florida. We're blessed. We have the best expediters.
Yeah, we're really
Philly
lucky
and,
here.
yeah, like, between the guys that run the show in Florida, like it's almost always the same backstage crew between Clash and Tim Gardner.
Yeah.
Well, they want to help you, but I've had clients that compete up in New York and things like that. And I'm like, just go ask the expediter how many people are in the classes ahead of you. And they ain't telling you a damn thing.
Right.
They ain't going to tell you anything, which I don't understand,
that's
because
unfortunate.
It just makes it difficult on the athlete for no reason.
Right.
For no reason.
I'd say that's pretty rare. I have come across a little bit of, rigidity in the Northeast, but for the most
It's
part,
mainly the Northeast is where I've heard it. Yeah.
When I'm backstage at a show, I'll approach the expediter and start asking and say, hey, can I see your sheet? Some of the shows post all like the Nashville Fit show. They had every class taped to the wall. So you could walk up and go, oh, this class, you could literally figure it out yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not every show does that.
So did Texas.
Yeah.
When we were in Texas, same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like every show should do that, should tape at least the schedule on the wall. Another thing that I want to touch on briefly is I always get asked anytime I talk about pee cups for show day. I know not everybody uses pee cups or pee funnels, but I always get asked, like, what are those used for? I think people assume it's like for a drug test or whatnot. But the reason that you hear some competitors say that they use pee cups or like a pee funnel, which I would always prefer a cup over a funnel, because the funnels are they're just, I don't know, I think they're messier, but it's to control your stream when you pee, so that way it doesn't run down your leg and ruin your tan. So for anybody wondering, that's what those are used for.
Also for the splashback, you don't want any splashing, no fluids.
Exactly.
And Lexie, let's call it what it's called. It's a vaginal.
Oh, I have both. So I have a vaginal.
It looks like a fake penis.
Dang it. I should have had, because I have one. I've never used it because it's kind of small. And honestly, I feel like a cup works so much easier. But yeah, it's like a splash guard, and then it just controls the stream.
They were trying to solve the problem, but yeah, that's some shit they don't tell you about bodybuilding shows, is that anytime you go in the bathroom at a bodybuilding show, there's going to be people in there flexing, putting on oil. The
bathrooms are usually not, I don't want to say
they're disgusting.
Yeah, they're dirty in the sense of like you go into the bathroom, you usually see just like tan marks all over the toilet,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're not always the most clean. At all, yeah. So that
Weird
is
vibe.
something though. I mean, you don't have to use a pee cup. I've definitely tried it before without using a pee cup. And you just have to be really careful. But you definitely don't want to either, like, you don't also don't want to sit on the toilet either, because that could just rub off that tan or smudge it
Oh
on the
yeah.
back
It's
of
always
your
funny when you see a butt ring on the toilet seat. You're like, oh, someone's walking around with a
Right,
hand
right.
missing.
Yeah, that's like I would say that's one of my least favorite parts of like once you get the tan, just not being able to actually sit down and like go to the bathroom comfortably. I feel like that's one of the things I don't like. But yeah, so that explains the P cups, P or the vaginals, as Paul says. If anybody has wondered what those are for, because I feel like I get that question all the time. Anytime I talk about that, or like if I put it on a show day list, I always get people they're like, "What is that for?"
I think another topic that's similar to this is I think a lot of people from the outside looking in think show day is this really glamorous thing where everyone's so beautiful and well put together. And it is to a certain extent, but it's also, to be frank, it's kind of disgusting on show day with it. Like you're talking with people that really haven't showered in a few days.
Oh,
And
they do stink.
yeah, whose
Everyone's trying to like
diets
eat food backstage and making a mess, so there's like food everywhere.
food everywhere. And I mean, just look at the society we live in today where people won't even pick up their own dog's poop or put their shopping carts back. So imagine that you get a bunch of people with paint all over their body walking around, right? Most people are not the most courteous, unfortunately, anymore. So things get gross. Like the bathrooms
I
get
think the
gross.
bodybuilding community, especially at the shows where they have the meetings and they explain, like, so when I used to promote the show, that was like the first thing I said, like, hey, we're in this venue. We're not going to get invited back if you guys tear it up. We're going to have no
Mhm.
place to do a bodybuilding show next year. So treat this place with respect. And I think athletes will do that. But yeah, I would, yeah, there's always going to be some people that are,
There's some.
you know, yeah, that are going to be messy. But if you set the example, throw like I've literally seen like garbage all over the floor and a big garbage can right there. And I'm like, y'all
Yep.
couldn't have just put your shit in the garbage can before you left. So
Yeah, I saw that unfortunately at the Tampa Pro this year. I was back in that room where they put the athletes backstage. I was there.
Ooh, that room, Lexie.
Yeah, I was there
Yeah.
after I can't remember what day it was. I guess it was Friday. So after like I think it was some of the men's pro divisions, but I was in that room and it was just messy. Like plates of like cuz they have that backstage treat bar. A lot of people were just leaving their trash around and I'm like, what the hell? It makes no sense. It was just gross, but
So yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a way to kind of look at that too. Is it's that's bodybuilding though. Bodybuilding is literally optics, right? It's all illusion. It's putting your best foot forward, and that also kind of applies to the show day as well. So I think a lot of people are kind of thrown off by that. I know I was the first time.
Oh, for sure. And another thing that's not so glamorous about show day is this will not be the case for every show, but for most shows, they start what around 9-ish for prejudging. And a lot of times, I mean, especially for females, when you have to get your makeup done, your hair done, the tan, you're up really damn early. Like I know I've been up as early as like 3 for a show before just to get my makeup done. So it's those days are very long. You're up very early. Now, yes, you do have usually a big gap in the middle of the day where you kind of just get to chill. For the most part, most shows are broken up in between like prejudging. There's a big break in the day, and then there's finals. So I know that time of day kind of always throws off a lot of new competitors because they're like, "Ooh, what do I do?" Because you just have this big gap in the day where, you can't really do much because you don't want to mess up your hair, your makeup, or anything like that. So you're essentially just kind of forced to like sit back, chill, eat, and just lounge a little bit.
Yeah,
well, and that can be the time based on how prejudging went, where you make some adjustments before finals because maybe something that people that are new to competing don't realize. Prejudging is where you go out and you get judged in your classes. So if you're in a class, like let's say you're in bikini class C, you get judged in that class. If you win that class at finals, you are going to be judged live again, right? So it's a whole new show. I've literally seen girls that looked okay in the morning look amazing at night and vice versa, so don't think just because you look great in the morning, if you go all day without eating or drinking or you're stressed, you can come back looking worse. So it's very important to understand that the show is not over in the morning, especially if you have an opportunity to win your class and compete again live judged. They're not gonna go, well, you looked really good this morning, so we're just gonna give it to you. It's judged in that moment.
Mhm.
And that's part of the sport.
I,
Yeah.
I I think an important thing to talk about too is the different types of shows you have. So you have just amateur shows, and then we have pro-ams. So a lot of pro-ams have pro and an amateur show attached to that. Now, if it's a larger pro-am show, say something like the Tampa Pro is a really good example of that. A lot of people like to do shows like that because it's fun, right? Like you're there with a bunch of big names, especially on Saturday. You have open bodybuilding, you have, you know, you know, bikini are normally the big divisions they have on those days. And it's cool. It's fun. Like you're around all those people. It's great. But also understand if it is a pro-am, if you're an NPC competitor, it's going to be a very long day for you. It's going to be an early morning and a late night with that because the middle of the day is purely set for the pros. They'll do their prejudging, they'll do their finals. And if open bodybuilding is a part of that show, it's going to take up a lot of time. It's going to take up a lot of time. So for a lot of first-time competitors, I don't recommend doing big pro-ams like that because the days are so long.
And I love the pro-ams because when there's a pro show attached, you're gonna have a better experience.
Mhm.
It's something I figured out a long time ago when I first got into the sport, and I would go to one show and then I would go somewhere with Lauren Conlon, who was doing pro bikini at the time, and I'd be like, wow, they really, because the schedule is so set for the pros. The nice thing is if you're a pro athlete, they tell you like, hey, pro bikini is going on at noon. That's when they'll stop the show, whatever's happening. Sometimes they'll get done with the NPC. But if it's, like in Texas, Lexie, for Republic of Texas, every year they do the whole NPC except for bikini. Then they do the pros. Then they do the NPC bikini. So it's
Yeah.
nice because those NPC bikini girls, no, they're not even going until 1 or 2, right? So they get to relax in the morning.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that at Republic of Texas, not this year, but the year before that. We didn't go on until like two
yeah,
in the afternoon. And then I want to say finals, we were on at like 10. So
yeah,
yeah, it was a long day, but honestly, no regrets. That show was so amazing. And I think if you are like, even if you are a newer competitor, I mean, I feel like a lot of bikini girls at least are like fans of getting to watch the pros. So
Mhm.
even
yeah.
just being a pro am, because you're going to get to be backstage with some of those pros, but you're also going to get to watch them. And that can be really exciting and kind of motivating if you are, a fan of the sport or just wanting to be a student and learn a little bit more.
Mhm.
Yeah, wanting to be at the shows, you're going to get the experience on the same stages, the same pictures, all that stuff, the same media exposure. And honestly, if you're on the path of like moving up in the sport, potentially going to national shows, that's why you'll see us at a lot of these shows because we're going to get the feedback before we go to nationals. Um, and that's how you make sure your athletes are in position. Sometimes the judge will even tell you like, yeah, you should go, or nope, you need to work on this. So, yeah, and versus like, I've had some athletes go to shows and be told like, oh, you're too hard, you're too big. And I'm like, well, no, you're not actually too hard, too big. That's just you were at a small show and that judge doesn't understand the standard at the top of the sport. He's comparing you to what was available that day. So
Mhm.
sometimes you can ruin an athlete's confidence. And that's something, you know, shit they don't tell you. Not all judges are created equal,
Yep.
Yep.
you
And I
know.
remember, Paul, when we interviewed Sandy Williamson earlier this year, I remember something, I can't remember verbatim what it was that we said, but something along the lines of, so I know she said this made her super mad, where some people will say, oh, you were too big and too hard at like the amateur show, but you would do really well with that physique if you were at a national show or something
Yeah.
like that. And she got really upset with that. She's like, it's like we don't judge differently at like a regional show versus a national show. Like the criteria set, it's the same. So yeah, that's and like you said, Paul, that's probably why all of us try to put our athletes in shows that we know previously are just very well run, have really
Yeah.
great head judges, whether it's a lot of these like pro level judges are really great and consistent with what they reward.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about just like in a very condensed nutshell, let's talk a little bit about, so if you are somebody who is newer to the sport, and let's say you go to a show and you watch, let's talk a little bit about how to kind of understand what's happening on stage, just in terms of what are call outs, what does it mean when the judges are moving people around. So let's talk a little bit about that so people can kind of understand what is going on stage.
Yeah, the NPC is pretty straightforward at this point. I mean, when I first got into the sport, there were some shows that moved people around a certain way and some that didn't. So you had to know what was likely happening. My first ever show, when I competed, there was 9 of us on stage, and they had us in numerical order. And then we did one round of posing, and then we swapped order. So all the judges on the table got to even look at us. They never compared other people. So you did not know if you were first or last until the awards came out. Like literally they were going 5th and 4th and 3rd and 2nd. And I thought, oh, I didn't even get a placing. And they called my name for first. I was like, oh shit, I won. Because, you know, in my mind, I think that's how it should be. The problem with the judging and moving people around, I think it can influence some of the other judges. I understand sometimes they're trying to create a standard. But you know, I've been at shows where, you know, the head judge or someone moves someone and it influences what one of the other judges would do. I kind of like the unknown, like, you know, let's let all the judges pick. But the way it is now, you want to be closer to the center, right? Typically those top spots are going to be 1, 2. And I've even heard some people be like, coach, I was on the 1 and the other girl was on the 2. And I'm like, no, hold on. That's for awards for finals. The judges don't know where your feet are on the stage. They're just comparing you. But yeah, there is typically going to be centering for the top placings. Now, I will say this, come back to finals. I've heard girls not come back to finals and they didn't realize they won, because there have been cases where they took the winner who was so good, they just put him on the outside. And they're trying to figure out 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And that girl's like, oh, I didn't even place. I was on the end. Technically speaking, you don't know. You can think you know, but you don't.
Yeah, and this is something I don't have as much experience with, but I'm sure you guys have heard of this before. So at NPC shows, like you said, Paul, they're very straightforward. But I've actually seen at some OCB shows where they bring everybody to the center to like look at them at one point. I've seen that be the case at some other shows in different federations. So that's very much so a thing. So
So I'll tell you my experience, because I used to promote with OCB,
yeah, yeah.
judge with OCB, and I even directed how my judges should behave. I told them never center anyone. I would say if you want to compare 2 people, put them side by side, but that it does. I said never put them in a position so if there's 7 judges and I'm like, man, I'm struggling, and the judges will turn and talk and be like, do you need to see anything else? And I would say, I need to see 22 by 24. And they would go, okay, 22 and 7 switch. And then we do a round of posing, and then I would make my decision. But they don't know why I did that, right? And that was just one judge. So, you know, that's for me. That's one of the things that I get frustrated sometimes is when. So if you've got a typical NPC or an IFBB Pro show, right? You've got 1 and 2 in the middle. You've got 3 and 4 here. They never stand by each other. So the judges are making decisions now. Listen, these judges are so good. They know what they want. They've seen it a million times. But some of the judges on the panel might be like, okay, why is this one better than this one? So I always like it. Now, sometimes you will see that. Sometimes they'll even just take the top 2 or 3 off. They're standing out. They'll bring everyone else in and keep moving them. I'm a big fan when they just judge for a while.
Yeah.
You know, give them, you know, really give them a chance to showcase.
And I think they do that, like, right? It's especially if a
Mhm.
show's a little bit closer, and if 1 or 2 are pretty obvious 1 and 2, and then they really need to compare 3 and 4, then they will, and they pull them off. I think that's a good time to be able to do that with it. But also, you know, if they're trying to find the winner, that's their number 1 goal, is who is first. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, like a lot of that times it could probably be pretty interchangeable at times. They're trying to find the best person in the show to win, because there's no points for 2nd place anymore. Doesn't really matter.
Well, there are national shows where pro cards for 2nd. So 2nd and 3rd can be a very
Yeah.
big deal.
I was talking more about the pro ranks.
But the pro ranks, yeah, obviously once they pick their winner, now they're trying to figure out the placings. I'd love to tell everybody, yeah, it's awesome to get 2nd at a pro show, but I can tell you that's also, for some people, that's the most heartbreaking place, because you're 1 spot away from the Olympia and you're just, sometimes it feels like you just can't break through.
Yeah, and another quick topic on the like call out, well, not call outs, but if you're in a lineup and if you're a competitor on stage, if you are one of those ladies or gentlemen on the edge of the lineup, always make sure you angle yourself towards the head judge. I've seen some people before not do that, and unfortunately, you're probably going to stay on the end if you're not angling in towards the head judge, because they can't really see you properly and judge you. So just always make sure that you are angling your body towards the head judge at all times.
Yeah.
Have you heard? I've always said angle, but I've heard some judges be interviewed and they say don't angle. We know what we're looking for. To me, I don't understand that thought process because it's
No,
all
they can't.
angles.
I mean, if you've ever sat at a judge's table with a
Yeah, it's
lineup
all
of 9
angles.
people and somebody on the end is posing straight forward and not towards the judge, it looks like they're a stick.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Here's some other shit that they don't tell you about a bodybuilding show. Tell your friends and family when you get on stage, go to the center to take pictures. It's so funny when I'm like, oh, did you get any pictures from the show? And their family's all the way on the right shooting across, like there's no value there. No
yeah.
one's going to get upset if your daughter, your sister, your friend, your brother, your boyfriend is on stage. If you go to the middle, snap a couple pictures and go back to your seat. The middle is how we train to pose for the judge. So that's where you want to get some pictures from.
Right, right. And here's a question I get a lot, and I'm curious to hear what you guys tell your clients. I always get asked, well, if my friends and family are coming to the show, what would you recommend? Should they come to prejudging? Should they come to finals? Should they, go to both? What do you guys typically tell your clients on that? Like if they had to choose prejudging or finals, because I feel like both have their pros and their cons, but I don't know. What do you guys typically say on that?
I say if you care to watch the actual bodybuilding show itself and watch your significant other pose and watch comparisons, then prejudging. Prejudging is where the show is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Prejudging.
that's
Yeah,
typically
and
what I.
also sometimes if you don't do well, you don't want them coming to finals, right? So like,
True.
prejudging is where the show is decided. And then if you're going to do well, you can be like, hey, come back to finals. I have a chance to win or something like that. But yeah, prejudging is the actual show. It's outside of the Tampa NPC show where they just literally don't do routines. They literally just brought people out in groups and they moved it so fast. Typically in the morning, you're going to get the longer looks and they're going to, pick people apart a little bit more. So I think bodybuilding is prejudging, right? And then
For sure, for sure. And here's the way I look at it too. With a lot of shows for finals, they get over really late. And if I have, let's say, people coming to watch me after they watch me and after I get off stage, I'm going to feel inclined to talk with them for a little while, maybe hang a little bit. And if my show gets over at 10 a.m. and I've been up since 3 a.m., I'm probably going to want to get my award and just go to bed, right? So if somebody comes to prejudging, then you have like a lot more time afterwards to just kind of spend with them, say hello, chat, and you're not wanting to go to bed right then and there. So yeah, I think prejudging, if you have to choose, if your family and friends have to choose, prejudging would probably be, I think, all three of our answers.
And look, if your significant other or the person you're going to see is a bikini athlete and you go to finals when finals start, you're going to sit around for hours before that person gets on stage. And unless that person is going to win and be in the overall, you're going to see them on stage for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, here's another shit they don't tell you. If you are specifically going to watch a bikini girl and let's say the show says, oh, prejudging starts at 9 a.m., unless it's like an all-female show, you probably don't need to have your family and friends getting there right at 9 a.m. I mean, they can, but to your point, Evan, they're going to be sitting there for a long time, especially if there's a lot of men in the show, because all the men are going to go first. Bikini and like the females are always going to go last. Specifically, bikini is going to generally always go last. So you don't always have to tell your friends and family to get there right at the start of prejudging unless they want to sit there for a long time.
Yeah, and look, most people that come to shows don't really understand bodybuilding. They're going there to watch the person they care about up there on stage. And you have to remember that too. That's what they're coming to see you. And I know my parents went to my first show for finals. Not my first, it was like the third one I ever did. And my mom, when I got off stage, she was like, we sat there for 4 hours. You were on stage for 10 seconds. I was like, no, I get it. I never even wanted to ask them to come to another show again after that
Yeah.
because I understand that, right? That's why
Oh,
prejudging is absolutely where you want to go because that's where you're actually going to get moved around and seen.
well, and you can hang out after that. For
Mhm.
me, like that's the thing. Like my first show, my parents came and I was in bodybuilding, so I was up first. So it was nice. They got to see me, and then we got to go out to lunch. So it just depends with bikini, man. It can be a long day. It can definitely be a long day, and
Mhm.
bikini just gets. Sometimes they get the shaft with the, hey, no routine. We're just do a front back and
Yep.
and let's just get into groups. And if they don't understand the sport or don't care to enjoy the rest of the show. And the Tampa show at finals on Saturday, they're handing out a lifetime achievement award for 1 minute. They're letting the sponsors speak. They might have a guest poser. Some of these bigger shows, like, the hoopla can get in the way of your family enjoying. So prejudging, it's generally the safer bet for just not feeling so like you're like burdening someone.
Right. For sure, for sure. Now let's dive into, so we talked a lot about like the day of the show. Let's talk about, because I think this is very important and you touched on it at the beginning, Paul, feedback. Let's talk about how you can get feedback as a competitor. Like if the judge, let's talk about how you can get it there in person. And then let's also talk about what you can do if, let's say, I don't know, the show gets over at 11, the head judge leaves immediately. So let's talk a little bit about how as a competitor you can get feedback.
So as a coach, I try to respect the judges and respect their time, but I will say this: most judges prefer to talk to you than to get an email. Now, if it's 11 o'clock at night, they're still there. They're going to be up at the stage signing scorecards. Don't dawdle. If you're in a class and the show is, get near the judge's table and just be respectful. Hey, can I get feedback from anybody? Like sometimes, some of the judges have been working for 2 or 3 days at a big show and they might want to get up, but they do a good job of rotating some of these judges in. And so you might not be able to get, say, Tyler. He might be, like exhausted from multiple days, but you might get David Herskovitz, who's been sitting next to Tyler for 3 days and has great insight into the sport and understands it. And he's going to give you the, and this is the feedback that can be super valuable because they'll give you the positives, they'll give you what you need to work on. So it's invaluable. I understand it when someone's like, hey, my friends and family flew in for the show. I say, listen, cool, maybe I'll just go get it for you. Now most of the judges nowadays are doing some form of emailing, and the promoter will basically give you that option. I don't know who's consistent with it and who's not, but if you can get it right after the show, it's just so much more like spot on.
Well, and
And it's personable.
Yeah, and you're fresh in their mind too. They just saw you, they just awarded you. So I feel like the feedback is going to be a little bit.
Well, sometimes that judge just saw you. I've had girls walk up in their robes and they're like, number 70. And they're like, yeah, how do you know? Oh, I remember you. Like, so sometimes it can give you a boost of confidence. Yeah.
Anytime you can get feedback, and this is just a life tip that I feel like today is highly glossed over with all just like social media and Zoom calls and everything. Anytime you can have an interaction in person, it's going to be more beneficial. That person, that judge is going to remember you more than they are in an email and a picture. They absolutely are. So a lot of times people judge based off changes, based off improvements, right? And they want to see improvements on things. So if you met a judge, they look at you, you take their feedback. The next show you come in bigger and better, or whatever their feedback is, and you implement that feedback, they are going to notice that and they are going to remember you. It doesn't guarantee you a placing, but it guarantees you're going to get a look. And that's half the battle at big shows, is getting noticed.
Yeah. And then if you can't, for some reason, get feedback from the judge in person, obviously that is the gold standard, but you can always follow up and send your stage shots to them via email. But you do always run the risk of, a lot of, not all of them, but some of these judges have other jobs. Like I know Becky Clausen, I think she works a normal job throughout the week, or she at least used to. And I mean, I know Sandy Williams said that, I mean, she's retired now, but she used to be a nurse. So some of these judges have jobs during the week. So if you email them, you may not hear back for a while, right? And like, let's say you're going to go and do a show a week or two later. If you don't have that feedback for a week or two, then it's kind of like, not that it's pointless at that point, but it doesn't help out your case if you're going into another show. So, but you can always, you always have that option. But if you can stay and get the judges' feedback in person, it is just so valuable. And even taking like a voice memo of their feedback too, that way, if your coach isn't with you, sharing it with your coach, and just having that feedback via voice memo to always refer to, I think can be super helpful.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I shit they don't tell you about prep. I think we covered a lot of it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of the last big point I wanted to touch on. I feel like that's a really good shit they don't tell you about show day. I mean, we could do more on this topic because I know I did a YouTube series on this like shit they don't tell you topic, and spun it in a lot of different directions. So we could always do another episode like this too if you guys like it.
Yeah, I think especially for us, because we are typically so deep in the sport at this point, coaching, competing, things become normal. And sometimes you got to step back and look at it through the lens of like someone who's never been to a show. Here's something I'll say, and I say this all the time, but you got to say it because new people are listening. Go to a show before you compete, if possible.
Mhm.
A lot of the athletes that I talk to, they've never even been to a show, so they're completely like backstage, like what's about to, they don't know what's about to happen. They haven't sat in an audience and seen a show before. So they've been practicing their posing, they're great condition, but there's also like that big unknown factor. Whereas if you see a show and you see what stands out, I remember this weekend we had there was a girl competing at Janet's show, and when she came out, she was looking at the ceiling. And it looked very odd because all the other athletes were looking at the judge, but you could tell she had just done all the work. She looked great, but her posing was looking up. And I thought, I bet you when she practices posing, she looks up, and she's not used to looking at a judge, and she's never been to a show. And so just little things like that just, not necessarily going to hurt you, but you want to be familiar with what the show looks like. So yeah.
Yeah, what the show looks like and what the competitors look like in person. I think
Yeah.
that's a big value of going to a show because some people just think that, I mean, I think that we're starting to get past this, but I feel like some people still honestly think that the bikini is just kind of a like runway model division and they don't realize how much muscle it really does demand and require and the level of leanness. So just going to a show, seeing that, and even like seeing these competitors off stage in person, I think is just so valuable.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good kind of place to wrap it up with.
That's it.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you guys like this topic, let us know. Maybe we'll do more shit they don't tell you podcast episodes in the future. Leave us a review and comment on our YouTube channel too. I've been trying to look at a lot of those comments and get back to them, but I feel like a lot of people have been watching us on YouTube, so I like that. I know the YouTube channel has been growing too.
Listen, I did a really good job the last couple of shows of pulling my phone out and getting clips. I've gotten vlogs. I've got one from Janet's show.
Oh, sweet.
So I'm gonna try to pay attention at shows and at least get some stuff to review.
Yeah.
But it's actually reinvigorated me. It's kind of fun to do them when you remember. So
Yeah, that's the part. Remembering is the hard part. Or I don't know about you, Paul, but sometimes when I go and do like a show or a weekend and I intend to vlog, I'll start off really strong and then I'll kind of forget like part of the day. And then you go back later to put all your footage together and it's like 3 minutes and you're like, ooh, like, is that worth
yeah.
posting? What do I do? Yeah, it's hard.
Yep. Yep. It's always nice. Like at the Janet show at finals, I was able to record the bikini overalls, like those kind of things. So that'll add so I can talk over those.
Mhm.
And what's crazy is like the phones now, like the footage on my phone it's almost the same as if I brought like a big fancy camera. There's not this huge drop off in quality. So
Nope.
yeah. Some places are kind of harsh with like, oh, no cameras. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just recording content that's about your show. So if you want less quality on my channel, fine, I'll do by phone. But also no one complains about a phone because everyone's got a phone. There's
Yep.
what is it? Universe is the one. Even
It's,
Tim Gardner shows you can film now with your phone.
yeah.
Really?
Universe, for whatever reason, man, they are like no phones allowed.
I will say this year, the Tampa Pro, when I was watching the Bikini Pros, they were pretty strict on like, do not take your phone out and get like, because they had a live stream. And I know some shows, if they have a live stream that people pay
Hmm.
for, they think that if somebody's bringing out their phone, that they're like going live or taking videos. So some shows are a little strict about that,
Okay.
but
Yeah, Tim in the past, but this year I've been at shows and they've been like, listen, just do pictures and keep it short. They just don't want the phone up the whole time because, like you said, they're
right,
live.
right, 100%.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfecto.
Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here.
Sounds good.
Wrapped. Thank you for listening to The Code.
All right. Bye, guys.
Yeah.